Hello everyone, today we will discuss head porting of the M113 supercharger engine. So uh, the head is almost finished, but when it would be complete I would not be able to show all the things, so I think it's complete enough to show you all the things that were done and probably that you would want to be done on your head, or you would not do it anyway. So I want to explain you the concept of port cross-section, or basically port volume within the port length. So I think that is the most important thing that you need to understand before you port ahead, because you need to understand why you are doing it and what you're gonna receive. So basically, the problem is that usually heads are not perfect. So you have the castings which need to have a solid casting, which means that you need to have the high quality head on every head. So you get some parts are thicker than they should be. Usually these are the valve guides that are cast with a much thicker thickness that probably they could be. Anyway, so we'll get to this one in a moment. So what I want to show you is that if you would make a drawing, or if you would do a 3D scan or whatever of this head when it's stock, you would receive a graph something like this, but not like this. This is the line that we are looking for, but you would also have a bigger volume around here, because here you have the injector recess or injector spray nozzle, whatever volume that you need to spray the fuel. So next up, you would have a port that would go down in the cross section to allow the valve guide to be present there, basically. And this is not exactly needed because you could keep this and not remove it if the port could have something like another recess around there, or like in there, well, so you want to have a constant volume of this. So the most important things is like, well, we have the bowl around here behind the valve seat. Well, this drawing was I drew the blue lines first, so it's like the choke is the smallest part of the port. The seat is obviously getting larger, so it is not the drawing of the port, I believe. So it is the volume or the cross section, whatever you want. So now, because in this head you basically don't have anything like this, so you don't have a part of this port that goes to the side or something like that that allows for constant volume or the cross section along the intake port. That means that you probably need to remove the valve guide casting itself and shorten the valve guide a bit. So these valve guides have been shortened for maybe 4 millimeters or something like that. So it's not like a very big deal, but some guys would be annoyed and probably say that I have done something stupid. So now, imagine that we have this one, which is the port itself. And we want to have, of course, we can gasket match it and so on. So gasket matching is quite obvious. You don't need to discuss it a lot. So you need to match these ones. And you basically want to have this cross section that goes into these two ovals, or likely the seats itself. So the head was designed, this volume is created to have a constant volume, so this is the injector recess and so on, and you need this one to have the constant volume of the port along its length and so on. So don't remove this. These are your friends, So these are the ports that I have done. when they are new, you would basically have the valve guides that are protrude like this. And so in order to do the same job, you would need to remove a lot of material. And so what you would see is basically there would be the hump, and if you would work it out, I recommend you work it out like this side and this side of the valve guide, and same with this and with this. And so you would keep the valve guide in the middle as your reference port along the other ports and so on. It would be easier for you to understand whether all ports match or not. We will discuss the importance of this in a minute. And well, the tools that you probably want to have to make this would be this. This is a 6-inch, I think, board that I got from Summit Racing a while ago, actually 10 years ago, but whatever. So you can use this with a drill, and you would lean like this and get some results when you master it. It's not too hard, but it requires some time. So basically, you remove this part, this part. What you want to have is you want to have a normal, kind of equal transition from this oval or rounded rectangular to these two ovals again. But you don't want to increase the volume or something. You want to keep it constant, or you basically it is constantly decreasing volume. So don't expand anything much. What I have done also is that this is the thing that I have rounded in this fashion, and this is the same. It's like so. It's like to capture this. I haven't spent much time reworking this one because it's actually not that easy with the tools that I have got, and probably it would have a very minor effect as well. So now we can switch to our exhaust side review. And so this is the exhaust port, which is a little hard to capture because, yeah. Oh, so anyway, this is how the exhaust port looks now, and it didn't look that way when it started. So as casted, you have, well, like this part, and this is recessed. So it is a very strange thing, because I thought that the exhaust side would be very easy, but apparently it wasn't. So what I'll try to explain here is that is our exhaust port as viewed like this. So like imagine. So that is the EGR hole or something like that, you know. So these parts were recessed, and there will be the reach, something like that, the casting, which would protrude inside the port itself. So it would be somewhere around this and somewhere around this. So you would probably want to remove it, because our aim is to keep the now exhaust port somewhat constant. And also you need to understand that, probably you heard of it, but the intake port, the most important side, is on the inside of the port, on the lower side, which is the small turn or small radius or something like that. And on the exhaust side, it is the big radius, because the exhaust side would be pushed from the cylinder basically along this axis, because that's how you enter the cylinder and that's how you get out of the cylinder. So this side is the most important for the exhaust port. What you would want to have is, like, you want to go around the valve guide, and you probably want to keep, well, don't remove the valve guide on the exhaust, because it is exposed to a lot of heat, and you can round it up, but don't remove it, because I don't think it's necessary. Also, you have to remember that the exhaust gases are very compressible when they're hot. So also, this part of the exhaust port would be somewhat constrained with volume. And I think this side of the exhaust port is a little bigger. And what I mean by this and this, because one side has a oil flow channel that goes to the, it is basically oil drain from the head. So it is positioned like here, and it is accessible. You can put something inside and you will see that it goes like this and this. So don't remove it. You have to keep it. I have seen a head that the guys that had removed it, it's not very easy to get visible, you see. So I had seen some guys that removed it, but I don't think it's necessary. It's actually too scary to touch too much, so don't do that. So what you would want to end up with would be something like this. So you want to remove the ridges. So if we compare it, basically, this is the constraint part, which is positioned around here, you know. So there would be not enough space to do this. And second is, you would want to lower the port, or basically make the port roof taller if you are working in the correct terms. But actually, if you position this head, you need to lower this one. So around the valve guide, because the standard position would be like this of the exhaust port. So you would want to lower this and flow around the exhaust valve guide. And also I had made this side a little lower than this side, because this side requires some, you know, I do think that if we end up with this one, that would be a constraint. So it's rather good to bias the port to one side, which is this one. As for the porting tools, I used this one for the exhaust port most of the time. And this is a very funny thing, because I had this for 10 years and it was damaged with the previous head. And what it actually is, it has some play within the head. So it is working like a hammer a bit. And that is why I like it. So most of the head was done with this one. And some minor things were done with the long bore, but not much actually, very not much. So you could do this, and I will explain later. Well, anyway, I think this is a very suitable bore. It is a 12 millimeter bore. So for the combustion chamber, I had done these valves. These are the valves which are they come from another engine, the used engine, and so I had undercut it in this way. So I have a little of the valve seat, and the rest is accessible for the bore. This way I can get kind of close to the valve seats, but not ruin them. So, which is this. So that's it. Basically, very slow moving of this one will get you a very fine ridge. So you remove this one. You also can rework this one with this and a little of this, and then you can use this one, which is a kind of funny tool. It does help you to polish a little, and it doesn't ruin anything much. So another one would be these ones. These kind of Scotch-Brite rolls, easy rolls or something like that, but I think they are no longer available. This is the shaft that I had made for this tool, so it doesn't come with this one. Anyway, so I hadn't tried to polish everything, the combustion chamber, because I don't think it is very much needed. Second is that I don't want to skim the head or machine the head surface a lot, so I would probably ruin it if I polish everything. So that's what you come with. I think it's pretty good. So there is a little ridge, which is a little hard to see, but you can kind of see this one, and it is very hard to remove because the bore would not get inside of it. But I have a little tool, which is this one, and if I try, that is why I say these heads are semi-finished. But basically, I can, if I work it out, I can still reach this and probably not ruin the valve seat, because this part which is shiny, that is the valve seat itself. So you can almost reach it, and you shouldn't be. So you should probably work this like this, and don't touch the valve seat if you don't want to increase it or something like that. And I don't think it is much necessary because of the supercharger. You want to have normal flow, and I think that's enough. A camshaft would be better than the valve seats, bigger valve seats and bigger valves, I think. So after you have done the valve guides on the intake port, and probably you had done something on the exhaust port, like this, if you want to review this, how this one looks. So you can see a little resemblance of this one, of the smaller cross section. There is a little resemblance. And so after you have done this and probably had machined or something like that, cleaned the combustion chamber a bit, you would want to remove the seat ridges, which are not present here because I had those removed. And that is these ones. So they are quite severe, I would say. So some exhaust ports are mismatched to about 1.5 millimeter, or actually 2 millimeters or something like that, which is quite big difference. The exhaust or the intake ports are much smaller in their difference, but still they have some ridges which are not present here. Clearly you don't have them because I had removed those. So what you want to use for this, I use this one on the exhaust, and both for the combustion chamber and for the removing of these valve seat ridges, you probably want to have the smallest possible teeth of the bore, which is something like this. That was the one that I used for the combustion chamber as well. And if you use the very top of it, you can see that the teeth are very small. And so the smaller the teeth, the tooth, the less would be the material removed. So this works okay on this one if you are very careful, because if you're not careful, you would need to replace the seats. So this works better on the intake side, but you know, be patient and don't ruin anything. So next thing would be well, polishing of the exhaust port and a little of the intake. So these are the rolls that I have. So these are 60 grit, 100, 120 that I haven't used, two of the 180 and 240. So these are quite useful to get the bowls. You would also want then to match the bowls of the intake port with the exhaust, which are that I have done. And I can show you where they were, but basically they would be the machine part of this one and machine part of this one, and the part of the as a part of the seat ridges. You would want to shape everything very gently into one great transitioning volume. So for the exhaust side, you would not be able to get with a round paper roll like this one, you know, around this one. So that's why you would probably need the K rolls like these ones. So this is like 80 and this is 180 or something like that. I think, well, this is, yeah, this is 180. The bigger one is the smaller grid, and this was 80. So these help a lot to get around the edges and from that side, and they're quite helpful. So you would go to from 60 to, you know, 100, 180 maybe, and 240 on the exhaust. So it has to be very smooth. You can polish this out, but it's not that necessary. And on the intake, I had gone through basically 60, 100, 120, 120, or a little of 180, but it's still pretty rough. So you can go with the smooth one. You know, on the safe side, it would be to go with a somewhat bigger grid. That's what you get if you do everything right. Now, what you want to do if you want to have a very simple and quick and easy porting done. So what you want to actually do is to just remove the seat ridges with these ones, and you will be pretty happy with the results. And then if you can have some spare valves, you can get them done like this, and you know, shape the combustion chamber around the seats, and this way you can get a very good transition from the intake and exhaust and so on. And so that would be probably enough if you want to have a very easy and effective job on the porting, and if you just don't want to spend a week or two or maybe 3 or maybe a few months doing this work. Now for the fun part. So now is the fun part. That is the supercharger, and it is the intake gasket. And you can see that the head port itself is not the main constraint of this system, because actually the supercharger itself is the smallest part of this. So if you want to have this done correctly, you would need to port the supercharger. And what I mean is that about an inch or something like that, that is the lowest cross section of this whole assembly. So, and also it is extremely thin. You have to watch this thickness, and it is very, very thin, but be careful, and I think you can work it out. Or if you don't want to work it out, just don't do it. You can kind of match it, and this would be the least flowing part of your engine. I don't know what you want. So if you kind of buy a head that had been ported and you don't port the supercharger port right here, probably it won't be as effective if you would do this. But again, this is how it is, and you can do it, you can skip it, whatever. Another fun thing is the supercharger snout. So apart from going to the bigger throttle body that you would need to machine, you know, I don't know how you make this hole bigger, but you would want to use a spacer for the bigger throttle body if you wish to have a bigger throttle body. And so also there are some parts like here and here and here and here that would be cast. So to allow for the minimum thickness would be, which is usually 4 millimeters or 6 millimeters or sometimes 8. So if you see this shape like this, the inside should be like this as well, it was like this. Now it's fairly thin, and you have to watch it and don't make a hole. But these ridges are kind of, or basically parts, are suspended in the air and they mess up the air a bit. So if you remove them, that would be beneficial for the supercharger. The rest is not that much needed, so it was just done for fun, maybe, just to look fancy. So that is the way I got it. So I rounded the edges on the inside, and that's about it. So I think that's all. That's how you do the M113 head porting and supercharger porting at the, I think, not maximum level, but somewhat medium level. I wouldn't do anything much to get bigger power than this. So I think that's enough. The rest would be like camshafts, exhaust, and everything. I think that is adequate level of porting. And I don't think if you make the valves bigger or you remove this valve guide or something like that, you would get a dramatically better result or something like that. So I think that's a wise point to stop your interventions. So thank you.